When she ran for Congress 2 years ago, Donna Shalala said, "Elect me, I'll be ready to go on day one." Boy, was she ready.
Well, 2 years later, the Congresswoman has an incumbent's record to run on as she faces a rematch from the same Republican opponent in an election year dominated by the pandemic experience. Congresswoman Shalala, former president, former HHS secretary for President Clinton, joins us right now from her spot in the 26th Congressional District, which comprises Coral Gables up through downtown Miami and southern Miami Beach. Congresswoman, great to see you. Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
great to see you.
Let me admit and air, you are the Congresswoman in the 27th Congressional District, and that was my air, so I apologize to my colleague.
I read it, so I'll take just as equal responsibility.
Anyway, Congresswoman, we're glad to see you. On Tuesday, Joe Biden is going to finally campaign in Florida. Will you campaign with him?
No, because I'll be in Washington. We're going to Washington tomorrow because we need to finish this part of the session, and hopefully it will be the beginning of negotiations with the Republicans to try to do something about helping people in our community. We are really hurting in this community. We need to extend unemployment. We need to get money for the teachers, for the schools, for the hospitals, and we certainly need to help our small businesses if they're going to open. I heard the superintendent. He needs resources to change structurally the way those schools are organized. And the state needs resources if it's going to help us pay teachers and police officers and fire officers. We've just got to find a way to compromise and to come back with literally the taxpayers' money.
Congresswoman, while we're on the campaign, Vice President Joe Biden is making a trip to Florida this week. Kamala Harris was here in Miami-Dade this week, as polls show a little bit of a struggling in Miami-Dade Hispanic community in particular. What do you make of that very sliver, an important sliver of the race so far?
Nothing. It's so early, and we're just starting to make our cases. Now, I've been making my case for a long time. With the Hispanic community, and obviously I represent a different district that's 70% Hispanic. Joe Biden will make a very clear case. Look, I don't run into a Cuban woman that isn't upset about this president taking children out of the arms of their mothers. We've got a long way to go to make our case. Voting is going to start at the end of this month, so I'm pleased that Joe is coming in. Kamala was here and had a big impact on the groups that she met with. And so you're going to see a lot of the Biden-Harris campaign, and all of us are going to be working hard for them at the same time.
Yeah, Congresswoman, we have learned that Michael Bloomberg, the former New York mayor candidate for president, briefly is going to give the Biden campaign $100 million for Florida. Boy, that's a big chunk of change. How much difference is that going to make?
It will make a difference in getting our message out. It will mean that we'll dominate television and radio in both Spanish and English. And it'll give Joe Biden an opportunity to be very clear about his differences with the current president.
Yeah, but Mr. Biden is fighting something that in fact has been raised in your campaign, true or not, but the candidates, Maria Elvira Salazar, who's running against you again, who will be a guest on this program, she says that that you and Joe Biden and the Democrats are all radical leftists, you are socialists, and that you are sort of too close to all the radical or very left-wing members of the Democratic Party, like AOC or Ilhan Omar. What's your response to that?
It's ridiculous. No one could be more of a capitalist than me. No candidate that's running for office in South Florida has created more jobs than I've created. I'm a pragmatic capitalist. I also believe in Medicare and Social Security and the Affordable Care Act. I have the largest enrollment in the Affordable Care Act of any congressional district in the country. Those are not socialist policies. They're policies that both Democrats and Republicans support. And I think charging us with things like socialism is it's just silly. It makes no sense. And if you look at our records, it makes absolutely no sense. And it will go down the toilet the way the rest of their charges will.
Congresswoman, to your point, COVID, the pandemic, is really overshadowing the election in every race. Interesting that you can talk as from the perspective of a former HHS secretary. This week, we heard the tapes from the Bob Woodward book coming out on President Trump about how the president knew that the pandemic was much more serious in the U.S. early on than he let on. He said he wanted to take the leadership position of calming a jittery public. From your perspective as that cabinet member, can you address that?
I certainly can. First of all, he blamed the Chinese for not telling us early enough. Now we find out the President of the United States knew and didn't tell the American people. This is more than a cover-up. This is part of a narrative from this president. It turns out it starts with him hiding information from the American public dangerously, recklessly, that resulted in unnecessary deaths. And it goes into him stepping on the public health message, refusing to accept the fact that people ought to wear masks and social distance, even last night at his rallies. No one had a mask on. And it's a narrative about a reckless president who is responsible for lying to the American people. And when he lies, people die. And the American people are catching on to all of this.
Is there any validity, generally speaking, in a leader taking a much more calm and comforting tone? Is there validity in that kind of leadership in this situation?
As long as they're clear about the facts. I did an op-ed at the end of February that basically said the responsibility of leadership is to give people the facts and the strategy, the program, the plan. But you've got to be honest with people about what the facts are. Combine that with calmness, no question about it. But you don't hide the facts. You don't hide information from the American people that could save lives. This is about life and death. And he has laid it out in a way that simply is shocking.
Yeah, Congresswoman, here, besides the Bob Woodward stunning revelations about what the president knew and what he didn't tell the American people, then on top of that this week, you had the Atlantic article still reverberating about calling veterans, military veterans, and men who had fought and died in World War II losers. And yet President Trump is at 48% in Florida, tied with Joe Biden. Why do you think these criticisms and these revelations, aren't getting more play or being taken seriously by Trump supporters?
We'll see on Election Day. 2 members of my family have been killed in Americans' wars. Every generation of my family has served in the military. My uncles who died in World War II were not suckers, and they were not losers. And every family that had a family member that served heard that, and it hit them directly in their hearts. That's more than reckless. That's evil for the President of the United States to say things like that about our military. We revere those who passed by defending our peace, by giving us opportunities. And it's unacceptable, and it will come out in the course of the campaign. But for those of us who have lost family members, my grandmother kept those 2 gold stars on her window until the day she died in the 1970s. She wanted everyone to know how much of a sacrifice that our family had made. It is really disgusting that he would say something like that.
Congresswoman, in the short time we have together, I know this week you were in Miami for an event to bring awareness to climate change. A couple of days before that, the president was in Jupiter signing this executive order extending the moratorium on offshore drilling, actually expanding it, and calling himself the #1 environmental president since Teddy Roosevelt. And I wonder if you would weigh in on that for us.
He signed an executive order. We had already signed a bill Republicans and Democrats in Florida came together to ban offshore drilling forever. Forever. He signs an executive, and we begged the Senate to pass the bill, and we begged the president to sign the bill. So he comes in during election time, signs a temporary executive order, one that he can reverse, which the administration months ago said that they would reverse any decisions about offshore drilling. I mean, how cynical can you possibly be? You know, we also passed with bipartisan support TPS for Venezuelans, and we cannot get him to act. Watch. Let's see if this election gets really close, whether he comes and finally signs an executive order.
Well, there are some that would say, however it gets there, it gets there. Congresswoman, great to see you. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman.
Great to see you.